Every morning, at the exact same time, our front door became a battlefield. Grandma reached for her walker, metal legs scraping softly against hardwood, a sound the whole house had learned by heart. And before she even touched the doorknob, Oliver was already there. Orange fur, wide amber eyes, planted between her and the door like he'd been waiting all night for this one moment. He wasn't just a cat who liked attention, he had a mission. We adopted Oliver 3 years ago, from a shelter 2 towns over. He was thin then, quiet, the kind of cat who flinched at sudden movement and hid behind the water heater for the first 2 weeks. The volunteer warned us he might never really open up. Nobody told him that. From his very first night in the house, Oliver chose Grandma, not the couch, not the sunny spot by the window. Her bedroom door, where he curled up every night like a small orange guard on duty. By morning, he was already following her, into the kitchen, past her chair, down the hallway. If she sat, he sat nearby. If she moved, his ears turned first, tracking her before his body did. But it was the coat that changed everything. The moment Grandma lifted it off the hook, Oliver's whole body would go still, ears forward, eyes locked on her hands, like he already knew what came next. The first time it happened for real, we almost didn't believe it. Grandma had an appointment that morning. She shrugged the coat over her shoulders, gripped her walker, and started for the door. Oliver moved fast. He crossed the living room in 3 long strides, wrapped both front paws around the hem of her coat, and pulled. Grandma stopped mid-step. "Oliver, move." He didn't. He let out a sound none of us had heard from him before, sharp, insistent, almost human in its rhythm, not a meow so much as a plea. We laughed. Of course we laughed. It looked exactly like a tiny orange bouncer refusing to let the most important person in the house leave the building. "He's guarding you," my dad said, grinning. Grandma tried to shake her coat loose. Oliver held on. She tried stepping around him. He cut her off, planting himself squarely in front of the door again, tail low, eyes fixed on her face. 10 minutes later, she was still standing in the entryway, coat half on, walker halfway to the door. Oliver hadn't moved an inch. She missed her appointment. Nobody was upset. How could you be? The whole scene was too strange, too sweet, too specific to be annoying. Grandma finally knelt down, as much as her knees would allow, and rested her hand on his head. "I'll be right back, sweetheart," she whispered. Oliver went quiet, just for a second. Then he let go of the coat. We thought that was the end of it, a funny morning, a story to tell at dinner. We had no idea it would happen again the next day, and the day after that, and every single day after that. The same walker, the same coat, the same orange cat throwing himself against the door like his whole world depended on stopping her from walking through it. By the end of that first week, something in the house had shifted. Nobody was laughing quite the same way anymore. There was a question sitting quietly underneath the humor, one none of us said out loud yet. What did Oliver know that we didn't? For a moment nobody in the room moved. Grandma stood by her chair, coat half over one shoulder, staring down at Oliver. He was sitting perfectly still in the middle of the living room, looking straight up at her, mouth still slightly open from whatever sound he'd just made. "Did he just?" my mom started, then stopped herself. "Do it again, buddy," my dad whispered, phone already out, thumb hovering over the record button. "Come on." Grandma took a slow step toward the door, testing it. Oliver's ears shot forward. He opened his mouth again, and this time we all heard it clearly. A long drawn-out meow that curled and dipped in a way no ordinary meow ever had. It rose at the end like a question. It carried a rhythm that sounded, unmistakably, uncannily, like a word. "Mama." The room went dead silent. Then, all at once, everyone burst out laughing, that stunned, disbelieving kind of laughter that comes when something too strange and too wonderful happens right in front of you. "He did not just say that," my dad said, still filming, hands shaking slightly. Grandma pressed a hand to her chest, laughing and blinking fast, like she wasn't sure whether to cry or keep giggling. Over the following days, it happened again, and again. Whenever Grandma stood up too quickly, Oliver would let out something that sounded like "no." Whenever she came back into a room after being gone a while, a short, clipped "ma." When dinner was late and Oliver was hungry, an impatient little "now" that made the whole family lose it every single time. Was he really talking? Nobody could say for sure. Cats don't form words the way people do, but the timing, the tone, The way each sound landed exactly when it made the most sense. It was uncanny enough that even the most skeptical among us started to wonder. My dad uploaded one video, just one. 15 seconds of Oliver blocking the door, gripping Grandma's coat, and letting out that unmistakable mama cry. By the next morning it had 200,000 views. By the end of the week it had passed 4 million. Comments poured in from every direction. "He's definitely talking, I don't care what anyone says. This is the most relatable separation anxiety I've ever seen. Someone give this cat an Oscar and a Nobel Peace Prize." Strangers from across the country started tagging the video, tagging their own grandmothers, tagging their own cats, asking if their pets did anything similar. Local news even reached out. Overnight, our quiet street with its quiet mornings had a small, unexpected celebrity living in Grandma's lap. Through all of it, something else came out, something Grandma had never mentioned before. One evening, while everyone sat around reviewing the latest comments, Grandma finally admitted something with a small, almost shy smile. "You know," she said, "every single time I leave, before I even reach the door, I always tell him the same thing." "What do you tell him?" I asked. She reached down and scratched behind Oliver's ears, and he leaned into her hand, eyes half closing in contentment. "I'll be right back, sweetheart." Every time, every single morning, for 3 years, those were the last words Oliver heard before she walked out that door. Maybe he'd simply learned the pattern. Maybe, in his own quiet, four-legged way, he understood that leaving meant something uncertain, that the person he loved most in the world would disappear for a while, and there was no way for him to know, not really, whether right back was a promise he could always trust. Grandma laughed softly at the thought, but there was something tender behind her eyes too. None of us could have guessed how much that quiet understanding was about to be tested, because a few weeks later, on an otherwise ordinary Tuesday evening, Grandma didn't come home. She had to stay overnight at the hospital, and when the door didn't open, when her voice didn't call out, when the routine broke for the very first time in 3 years, Oliver's reaction broke every single heart in that house. That Tuesday evening started like any other, until the phone rang. Grandma's routine blood pressure check had turned into something more. Nothing life-threatening, the doctors assured us, but she needed to stay overnight for observation, just to be safe. We didn't think twice about it. Of course we didn't, but somebody forgot to tell Oliver. He waited by the door that evening, same spot, same posture, ears tuned to every car that passed outside. When 6 o'clock came and went with no walker rolling through the entryway, he simply sat there, watching, waiting. By 7, he'd stopped eating. By 8, my mom found him curled up outside Grandma's bedroom door, not sleeping, just lying with his chin on his paws, eyes open, staring down the hallway like he expected her to appear any second. "He knows something's different," my dad said quietly. None of us slept well that night. Every so often, we'd hear him get up, pad softly down the hall, check the living room, check the front door, then return to his spot outside her room, over and over, a small orange shape moving through a house that suddenly felt too quiet. By morning, he wouldn't touch his food at all. He paced instead, long restless laps between the door and the hallway, tail low, ears flicking at every sound from outside. We tried to comfort him. He let us pet him, but his eyes never stopped scanning the room, always circling back to that front door. Grandma came home the next afternoon. The second her key turned in the lock, Oliver's head snapped up, his ears shot forward, his whole body went rigid, alert, like every muscle had just remembered what it was waiting for. The door opened, and Oliver moved faster than any of us had ever seen him move. He crossed the entire living room in what felt like half a second, launching himself toward her, before she'd even set her bag down. Grandma barely had time to lower herself into her chair before he was already in her lap, pressing his whole body against her, purring so loud we could hear it from across the room. He rubbed his face against her cheek, climbed higher onto her shoulder, circled back down into her lap again like he couldn't quite settle on being close enough. Grandma wrapped both arms around him and just held on, her eyes glassy, her voice barely above a whisper. "I told you I'd be right back." For the next several hours, Oliver didn't leave her side, not for food, not for water, not even when the rest of the family quietly slipped out of the room, wiping their own eyes, giving the two of them space. The next morning, life slowly found its rhythm again. Grandma reached for her coat, same as always, and Oliver was there in an instant, grabbing the hem with both paws, refusing to let go, letting out that same dramatic, unmistakable cry that had started this whole story months ago. This time, nobody tried to test him, nobody questioned it. We just laughed, the good kind of laughter, the kind that comes after real fear has passed, and only love is left standing in its place. Some traditions, it turns out, are worth keeping. In the weeks that followed, we caught ourselves watching the small moments differently. Oliver sleeping curled against Grandma's side each night, walking beside her walker every single morning, sitting by the window until she returned from even the shortest errand, waiting at the door like clockwork, every single time, without fail. People still ask if Oliver could really talk. If those sounds truly meant mama, or no, or now. Maybe he never needed actual words at all. Every paw wrapped around her coat, every desperate cry at the door, every night spent guarding her doorway instead of sleeping anywhere else in the house, it all said the same thing, over and over, in the only language he had. Please come home safely. That evening, Oliver curled up beside Grandma on the couch, purring softly, eyes finally closing in peace. His favorite person was home, and for now, that was all that mattered.